Welcome to another episode of Positive Solutions for Life. This is Peggy Meyer. Today's guest is Leslie Shreve. Leslie is a founder and CEO of Productive Day and is a workload management and productivity expert who created Taskology, the science of getting things done, a comprehensive system for managing tasks, time, and information. Since 2003, she has helped hundreds of professionals across more than 30 industries increase efficiency by up to 300%, reclaim 1 to 2 hours in their workday, and reduce time spent in their email box by up to 50%. Leslie has been interviewed on television, radio, and podcasts. Her advice has been featured or quoted in several publications and books. Leslie has also published her first book in 2016 called Taskology: How to Unleash the Power of Your Most Productive Workday. Welcome to the podcast, Leslie.
Thank you, Peggy. It's great to be here. I look forward to our conversation today.
I do too. This is a topic that's kind of dear and to my heart because I feel like I'm pretty productive and efficient at most things, but there's some days that it's really, really a struggle. So I'm looking forward to this. And with that, can you start the conversation by just sharing just a little bit more about you, your journey, and how it has led to where you are today?
Sure, absolutely. So I am celebrating 21 years in business this year, which is exciting.
Yes.
And I never actually thought that I would own a business. That wasn't a dream of mine as a child or even a teenager or even in college or anything. I didn't actually realize what I was about to do until I did it. And
Hmm.
I thought that I would be in the corporate world forever until I retired, actually. And I grew up with a dad who was at Black& Decker for more than 30 years, back when people were at their job for a really,
Yeah.
really, really long time.
Yeah.
And I remember him taking me into the office one time when I was really young, and I was helping him with something that he wanted to do really quick on a Saturday. And I just kind of fell in love with the whole corporate atmosphere. And I thought, wow, this is awesome. I want to work at a place like this. So as I went through high school and college, I knew I wanted my business degree. So that was easy peasy.
Hmm.
Got the degree, came home. Here in Baltimore, we had back then the Baltimore Sun, back when you were circling things in the newspaper
Yep.
to
Yep.
find a
Yep.
job. And so I really was aggressive with, I want to get my job like right away. And so I got one within 2 weeks of graduating, and I landed in a career that I ended up loving, and I didn't even know it was a thing. It was material management, purchasing, and contracting.
Yep.
And it was kind of all tied together. And I landed in one industry that where the company ended up selling just a couple years later, and they asked me to stay, and I said no, I think I'll start over, but thank you. And I
Mhm.
landed in healthcare. So for most of those 13 years I was in some of our local health systems doing all of the contracting for anything from q-tips to CAT scan machines and pacemakers. And I really loved the cost benefit analyses and the
Mhm.
spreadsheets and the negotiating and the contracts. And I was good at it. I loved it, and I loved the people I worked with. But at some point I felt this restlessness
Mhm.
that I could do more to help people. I could do more to serve people using my innate talents. And I
Mhm.
thought, well, I'm very organized, I'm efficient, I'm productive. I, grew up that way. I had parents
Mhm.
that modeled that. It's part of my backstory. And I was like, there's got to be a way to help people. So 20 years ago, 21 years ago, it started with just thinking I was going to help people get organized. But I found out really quickly that is not my game. Not the organization part, but doing it for people in their homes. It
Mm.
was not my jam at
Yep.
all. My
Yep.
heart is in corporate, and it always has been, and I
Mhm.
figured that out really fast. And so what ended up happening was just seeing the gaps in the
Mm.
workday, because I was helping people get organized. I was like,
Yeah.
sure, you can find or file that paper in 3 seconds or less, no problem. But then I discovered they were buried in email. Then I
Mm.
discovered they couldn't gather and prioritize their tasks.
Mhm.
And then I discovered that they couldn't find their information in the computer, which I
Yep.
hadn't even gotten into at that point.
Yeah.
And then they were buried in email and couldn't get time, and they just were chaotic still. And I thought, aha, okay, x-ray vision on what's still not working. And
Mhm.
after 5 years of teaching the same thing over and over again in those first 5 years, I realized I had a system. So I downloaded it from my brain. Took me a couple years to get all the ebooks out. We don't have
Right.
ebooks anymore, but that's how it started,
Yep.
just one step at a time and first
Yep.
things first. And by 2010, I had created the whole system PDF, and I trademarked it and called it Taskology, the science of getting things done. So
Nice.
that's what I've been teaching ever since. But the whole time, it's really been private one-to-one consulting and
Mhm.
team training.
Nice. Nice. Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people can relate to just like the inbox. The email inbox is just, it's bombarded every time you like turn around,
Mhm.
somebody else has your email, whether you kind of did it by permission and got something or, not, but then it gets flooded.
Mhm.
So I want to get into that, but just tell me, can you give a brief? I know you've talked about like, okay, that's the development of taskology. What is the science behind it? Like, is there a few like really good steps behind that you could share?
Mhm, absolutely. I could talk for hours. Like I mentioned before, I love teaching people how to take control of their workday.
Hmm.
And I think what people don't realize is that there is a missing piece in their workday strategy, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And I can go into each of the components of the system a little bit and talk with you and your listeners today about the task management and the time management, the email management and information management that make up the system. But what I think people are missing is understanding that when you're having a struggle with something like email, or maybe it's time, or maybe it's tasks,
Hmm.
when you focus in on that one trouble spot, what
Hmm.
happens is I think people run off and go look for an app for that, look for a
Hmm.
solution for that. And I don't
Hmm.
blame them. Like,
Yeah.
not your fault. You don't know what to look for, right? And I'm here to
Right.
tell you what to look for because this is where I think people are going off track.
Mhm.
If you find a task app or an email app that you really love, you've got to remember that that's not the whole solution.
Mhm.
It is only a band-aid to a much, much bigger problem. And I'm not trying to overblow it like, oh, everybody needs me. No, 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 no. What's happening is that you could get, this email app that you think is like the bee's knees, but then you still can't plan and prioritize tasks because you can't gather them and they're in like a gazillion different places and you're not getting enough time in your day.
Yeah.
There's no method for that, or so there's all these gaps, so you're only plugging one hole in the boat
Yeah. Yeah.
basically, and there's like 16 others that are still leaking, and that's the problem. So I just want to
Mhm.
alert everybody that the missing piece is having a system for
Mhm.
workload management in total. It is all connected, and I remember in the
Mhm.
early years when people would come to me and say, you know what, I really don't need that or that, I really just need help with email. And I would fall for it because, I was new in my business and I want to help people. And then I quickly realized I can't do that. Like, email
Mhm.
management is task management in disguise.
Yeah.
It's also information management in disguise. So
Yeah.
you cannot address email until you have a workable task management system. And
Mhm.
I'm not even trying to make that sound fancy pants. It's, if you're using Microsoft, it's the task list. If you're using Google, get GQs. If you got something else, use Asana, Trello, Todoist, whatever. And while those are task apps, and yes, the missing piece in those is you still need a methodology for the technology.
Yeah.
So that's where I think folks are like, oh, I've got this brand new bright shiny object and this is it. This is the answer. But then they get into it and then try all the bells and whistles and colors and categories and go down that rabbit hole. And then before you know it, they're spending too much time on the system and not on their work. And they get
Mhm.
frustrated and then they stop.
Yeah.
And I just want everybody to understand you still have to have a methodology for the technology. What you've bought
Mhm.
is just a tool,
Yeah.
but you need to know how to use it and maximize your time. And oh, by the way, it needs to have all those components. So I might be a big fan of Microsoft. I know people really hate it, but since coming from the corporate world and all my clients are stuck with
Right.
it, kind of makes my heart sing. But it has tasks, email, calendar, contacts, and notes. It has everything we need. Like, we don't have
Mhm.
to go buy software. They've got
Mhm.
what they need, and I place the methodology on top of it. When you're using something else like Google, then it kind of forces you to go look for an app, or it forces you to still use paper, right?
Mhm.
Like legal
Yeah.
pads, big pads, little pads, spiral pads, notepads, post-it notes, Excel spreadsheets, Word documents, whiteboards, like really,
My God, I have it all.
right? And so it makes me sad because that
Mhm.
sends you in so many places to figure out what you're going to do today.
Yeah, and it's just like bing, 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 bing. I mean, I'm just like watching my eyes go like all over because I'm like, I've done all of that, and I still do some of that.
Yeah.
But
So
it's
that's
like,
what's happening.
and
Yeah.
it's happening, and it's just like, I know it's unproductive. I know it's just like, but you're so right. Like, we get focused on one aspect of it, and we definitely go down that rabbit hole. It's just
Yeah.
like, oh, and then we spend all of that time. And meanwhile, where we're focused all on this, the rest of it is going to crap
Right.
because we're just like, it has, you look, it's a system, it has to work together.
It's
And you
the whole
gotta have
workday.
this vision of like what it is that you want in the end.
Mhm.
And
It's the whole
how is that
workday.
gonna fit into, like,
Right.
I guess, our personalities too, like, how you do stuff.
Not as much as you would think, because
Okay,
once you get a structure you can really rely on, I mean, it's so easy
it's
and
true.
it's surprisingly easy to people. I remember the
Mhm.
old V8 commercial, I wish I had a V8,
Yeah.
they kind of do that and they go, wow, that was so simple. But if you haven't had the time to like sit down and figure it out. And who has time for that?
Right.
You know, somebody like me, I can show you how. There's plenty of other productivity people out there too. You know, they can show
Mhm.
you their method. So whatever you do, just get something that ties everything together
Mhm.
because everything affects the other parts of your work, which is why I call it workload management
Mhm.
because it isn't just email management or task management. It
Right.
really is everything. So
Right.
that's the first tip I want to give everybody, just to give an insight here, because it isn't just about one thing. That's the
Mhm.
first thing I'll say is you need a
Yeah.
system to tie it together. But we can
Yeah.
talk about any part of the system that you'd like, and I can give some tips on how people can get
Yes.
started.
Yes. I mean, what comes to mind, and I think what I hear a lot is, "I just don't have time." Yeah, and so can you shed a little bit of light on that? Because one, it feels like, gosh, that could be overwhelming. That could take a lot of my time just trying to figure out this methodology, the structure, the system. And what if I could
Mhm.
just do this,
Yeah.
and then you get
Yeah.
into the rabbit hole,
Yeah.
but then it's like, I understand that I could probably save some time if I had a method or a structure. So could you like tell a little bit more about that?
Absolutely. Yeah. Let me give you guys the juicy juice because I really don't want you going down these rabbit holes anymore.
Yes, please.
So here's the deal. First of all, you really want to pull your tasks away from their sources and get them into one central digital location. So doesn't matter what tool you pick, because again, it's how you use it that matters. Because
Hmm.
everything's got bells and whistles. Even Microsoft has bells and whistles I'll never use. And I
Yeah.
tell my clients, don't worry about that. And I'll tell you guys what to pay attention to as well. So I'll get
Mhm.
to that in a second. Um, you've got to pull the tasks away. So right now, tasks are coming from more than 10 different sources in your workday. Email is just the most prominent and
Okay.
annoying because it's never ending
Mhm.
and it is such a magnet.
Mhm.
So what happens is we've got emails coming in, we've got tasks coming from phone calls, voicemails if they don't get you,
Yeah.
texts, social media, meetings, hallway conversations. If you're at work,
Mhm.
um, the papers and files on your desk can also be representative of things that people need to do, their
Mhm.
tasks and follow-ups, and it's
Mhm.
sitting there as a
Yep.
reminder.
Yep.
And when you fill up a legal pad or a planner or any kind of paper to-do list with tasks and follow-ups, that becomes yet another source because you
Mm.
filled it up. So now
Yeah.
you have to reference that too. So now you're referencing all kinds of things. And what ends up happening is that now you're trying to plan and prioritize basically in your head because you're
Mhm.
trying to remember the flagged email that's most important, the most important voicemail, the most important thing on your desk, the most important that's sitting on your legal pad. And now you're
Mhm.
going, all right, which one's going to get my time and attention now? Like, what do I need to do now?
Mhm.
And so that's a really risky process right there. And so what I want people to understand is that it's actually impossible to efficiently, effectively plan and prioritize and accomplish tasks, trying to manage them from their
Mhm.
sources without missing, losing, or forgetting something
Oh,
along
yeah.
the way. So you've got to pull your tasks away from the sources, okay, and get them into a single digital system. So let's say you are using um, Microsoft, we would use tasks, not the to-do list, because that's connected to the flag. If you're using Google, I would say they have kind of a teeny tiny, not so great task list. Go try GQs. That's a Google product. I've looked at it. I've not used it extensively, but it looks better to me than the little postage stamp size task list that Google offers. So just skip over that. If you are using something like Asana or Trello or Monday or Notion or whatever, Todoist,
Mhm.
use that, but get everything in there. And I know that sounds overwhelming. Let me tell you something. When you get everything in there,
Mhm.
not only are you going to get an amazing level of clarity, but you're going to gain more control of what's on your plate and what you decide to do and when. I'll get to the when in a minute, but also confidence, because once you have that clarity and awareness of everything that's on your plate,
Mhm.
even if you're not going to do it today or this week, like I'm going out, weeks and
Yeah.
months here.
Yeah.
My clients have anywhere from 30 to 150 tasks on their task list, but they're not all for today or this week
Mhm.
or even this month. And
Oh, that's
same
a good
goes for
idea.
me.
Yeah.
Mine's in the 60 to 70 range, but they're,
Mhm.
going out. So once you get that there and you get that level of awareness, you're not flying blind anymore. No
Mhm.
more surprises. Nothing's going to slap you upside the head like, oops, I forgot that follow up. Shoot. And then now it
Yeah.
has you chasing in another direction.
Right.
And then whatever you were going to do today is taking a back seat.
Mhm.
And that's reactivity in your workday right there.
Yeah.
That's the reactivity we want to get away from, right?
Yeah.
And become more proactive. So only when it's in your vision can you
Mhm.
truly compare and contrast the many things that are on your plate and make smart decisions about how to spend your time. So I know it sounds overwhelming,
Mhm.
but get them all in there because when they're all in one single inventory,
Mhm.
doesn't matter where they came from anymore.
Yeah.
And now what matters is when you decide to take action. and that's what we
Can I
start to
ask a
do.
question?
Yeah.
I'm curious. I just need a little clarification here. So you
Mhm.
say like, okay, you got all of these different sources that you can, need to put all of this tasks in one. Like, how do you do that if it's like it's a voicemail? Like, how do you like enter it into the
Yeah.
one
Yeah.
thing if I'm
Uh-huh.
gonna do like the task manager or something
Yes. Yeah.
from, my notes on my desk and my voicemail and my email, like like what do you write? Like it's
I'll walk
located in here or like
I'll No,
my
no, I'll walk you
brain
through
is
it.
like, I don't
Yeah.
know
I'll
how to
walk
do
you through it. Let's use you as an example.
that. Okay.
Do you have a voicemail right now that you have picked up and you haven't, like, returned the call? Or do you have something
Yeah.
on your desk
Yep.
that
So I have stuff on my desk. I have,
Okay,
stuff in my planner, in my
okay.
calendar,
Yeah.
texts. I have emails, I mean, I got
Right.
the gamut. So,
So, okay, so we'll start with a voicemail, and
okay.
let's give the person not a real name. Give me a
Okay.
name of someone you're gonna call back.
Okay. So I'm gonna call back Joan.
Joe. All right. So when I talk my clients through this, I say, "Okay, Peggy, what are you gonna do?" And you say, I need to call Joe back, right? Because he called today or whatever.
Yeah.
The next thing we're going to say is why are you going to call Joe back?
Mhm.
What's the reason? Is it because you know what he's going to ask you, or you know what he's looking for? Are you going to call him back to find out what he needs? Is it that simple? Because sometimes people are going back and forth, and we know what Joe is looking for, and it's a little
Mhm.
bit more extensive than that. Maybe it's that you called him first because you need something, and you called him
Mhm.
last week, and now he's calling you back. So now your task really is the same as it was last week, which is I need to call Joe because I need A, B, and C.
Mhm.
So we always want to include the why behind
Yeah.
it, the description.
Mhm.
Don't be cryptic or mysterious. Put it all in there. If you've got stuff in your head right now, this is what I want to talk to this person about, get it in the task. Now, in taskology, we always start the task with a verb. It incites action. It tells you you've already thought through the task. So call, create, review, revise, consider, send,
Mhm.
email, talk to. It almost doesn't matter what it is. I jump on follow up
Okay.
because I'm always going to say how.
Yeah. Yeah.
How are you
Yeah.
going to follow
Yeah.
up? Are you going to
Email,
call,
call, so it's gotta
text,
be a
send a
little.
carrier pigeon? Yeah.
Yeah.
So most verbs, like 99% of them, are highly acceptable,
Mhm.
even if you need to consider something or decide on something.
Mm.
So these are all very powerful because you're not just jotting Joe Smith down on a legal pad and expecting to remember what it was you were going to do. You want to articulate that.
Mhm.
So we start that way and then we put the why. So a task in taskology is teeny tiny. This is where I think a lot of systems go wrong because even when they do their demos, and I've said this so many times to people, when I watched a demo once, and I don't remember what system it was, but it made me laugh because whoever was doing the demo was like, "Oh yeah, and you put your task in here," and he put it in the project field. And even I was like, "Dude, that's a project." And the way you're stating it, like even if the field said task, and now I don't remember if it said task or project, I think it said task, and that's why I was laughing because he literally put a project in there. It was a multi-step thing, and I was like, "Dude, you got to break that down. That is not a task." So what's happening out there is that people, whether they're productivity consultants, coaches, gurus, whatever, I don't think they're teaching people what a task really is. So we're very specific in
Mhm.
taskology, hence the name, in
Yep.
how we define a task because you have to be able to make a task time connection. You
Mm.
have to know how many tasks can I do in this amount of time. So we have a formula in there basically so that if you're planning to do something, it needs to fit into a 30-second to 30-minute window.
Okay.
Even if you have something that's going to take you 3 hours and you might have to chip away at it over a course of a couple of days or something,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
you can always start it. And I think this is where people do sort of a mindset shift because they're thinking in terms of the outcome.
Mm.
I need to write that book.
Yes.
Or not that big maybe, but something big that's going to
Yeah.
take them a while. Maybe it could be even writing a lengthy article.
Mhm.
Well, you have to start somewhere. So just come up with a title or write the outline, start writing, and that's where we start using verbs like start, continue, and
Okay.
finish
Yeah.
because you can't do it all in one sitting
Mhm.
necessarily in a lot of
Yeah.
cases. Certainly in corporate you can't. And since a lot of my clients are in corporate, like they're
Mhm.
not going to get these 4-hour blocks of time. This is not
Right.
going to happen once in
Right.
a while maybe. But
Yeah.
yeah. So you have to make it a limited amount. And most of our phone calls and emails, they're 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Like most
Mhm.
things are really small. But when you're
Mhm.
really, challenged with, well, I need to get this whole report to Mike. Well, have you gathered the data? Have you looked at last year's report or last month's report? Do you need to talk
Mhm.
to anybody else before you start it? I mean, there's so many things that you can do to get it going. So in our
Mhm.
system, you want to think about the very first thing that you can do to get something started
Mhm.
or the very next action step to keep something moving forward and make it small. And even when you think you've gone small, try to go smaller. It's
Yeah.
always going to serve you because research shows that it's in taking these teeny tiny action steps. That's what gives you that steady forward movement that you
Mhm.
want in your workday. That
Yeah.
people want to, they want to go home feeling accomplished and
Mhm.
satisfied that they actually got something done. So
Yeah.
every task in our system is small and achievable.
So it's really breaking it down to the first next action.
The
And
first,
even
if it's not, yeah, if you haven't
yeah,
started
the
something
first
yet, and
or
then
the
the
yeah.
next, if you've already got something in motion. And
Yeah.
don't try to get out your crystal ball, please, and figure out all 20 steps that are going to follow that. No, don't do that. No, just go with the next step because in most cases, we don't know where it's going to lead. Let it unfold. And even if you are aware of a couple of things that you know you have to do in the course of getting this done, yes, put those in the notes section, but only pull one up on the task line.
Okay.
That's your next action step.
Yeah, because my phone call to Joe, might have a couple layers, but depending on his answer,
Mhm.
might be what the next step I could do.
Right.
So I
That's right.
can't plan more than
That's right.
that next step.
That's right. That's right. So when you get off the phone with Joe, something new might come out of that. And you say,
Mhm.
oh, okay, now I'm going to do this. And gee, I don't have time to do that today. So I'm going to plan that for Friday. Doesn't have to,
Mhm.
everything you don't do today doesn't have to fall on tomorrow, by the way. And that's one of the first things that my clients learn is that you've got to spread these things out. Like the
Mhm.
fact that you have them all in your vision, but you have limited time forces you to prioritize because you
Yeah.
can't have this huge list of things to do, this big bucket and this tiny little thimble of time because they're never going to
Right.
match up. So they have to prioritize. We have a limit to how many tasks we can plan in a day. I tell them, like, you can't go over this number to start with. Like when I train them,
Mhm.
they know the guidelines and everybody finds their comfy place to land, but it's a lot shorter list than you would expect.
Can you is it 5? Is it 10? Is it
No,
10?
5 or 6.
Okay.
A lot of my clients will have, and this all depends on what's on your calendar. Like it
Right.
depends on the networking events, the lunches, the calls, the appointments, the meetings, the kids' sports,
Yep.
whatever else you're doing. So every day is different. It isn't across the board at all. So some of my clients have 4, 3, 2, 1, or 0, depending on the day.
Mm.
And yeah,
Yeah.
that's the alignment that we have in the system. So not only are we choosing action dates for these
Mhm.
tasks,
Mhm.
we have a limit to how many you can plan in a day because you have to have that connection. I think far too many people will see the system say subject and due date,
Yeah.
DUE. We don't do that. We
Yeah.
might use that field, but it's DO in our system. It's when you're going to do that task.
Yeah.
So in our system, it's an action date. We have where it's due and due. They sound the same, but
Right.
it's due DO. So every task gets an action date and it forces you to prioritize. And that way, the things I
Mhm.
chose to do today, they are the most important things. And that's what gives you confidence.
Yeah, so you bring up 2 things, and I wanna, like, dig in just a little bit more on those, is how do you prioritize, and then ho like, when does it go in the schedule? Like, because you talked about when is the time thing, it's like, "Okay, now I've got these tasks."
Yeah, it doesn't go on the calendar.
Okay.
In our system, a calendar is only for literally scheduled appointments, meetings, calls, doctor's appointments, vacations, like literally things that are scheduled.
Oh, well, that's good
Tasks,
because I've been using my calendar kinda like that, and
good.
then, like, I've been people is like, "Oh, you gotta put your tasks, like, things on your calendar," and I'm like, "Yeah, I don't know where they fit." So you say that for
Tasks,
yours, it doesn't necessarily go in there.
tasks do not go on the calendar
Okay.
at all. No. No, tasks go on a task list. And the reason for that is because tasks are not time specific. You
Oh.
do not want them cluttering up your calendar and taking up a 30-minute spot. Even if you try to make it 10 or 15 minutes, it's going to clutter
Mhm.
up your calendar. And people put them all over the place, but we pull them all off. And so the situation becomes if you're putting tasks on a calendar, now you've cluttered it up. And now you've made it really, really hard
Mhm.
to see and discern between the real scheduled appointments and the tasks that are movable. So Mary calls you and says, hey, Peggy, can I talk with you on Thursday at 2? And you're like, I don't know, let me check. And now you're like interpreting your calendar and trying to figure out, okay, what can I move? What can
Mhm.
I don't know. No, just no. That's a hard no. Get tasks on a task list because some are only 2 minutes,
Mm.
5 minutes, 7 minutes, whatever. And you have to have the flexibility to be able to pivot in your day and not have something, stuck on the calendar
Yeah.
because, oh my gosh, and if it's even worse if you have reminders on. So it's going to slap you in the face at the worst time when you're
Yeah.
like, no, 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 I'm working on something else. And you end up kicking the can down the road and
Yeah.
snoozing it. Just no. It goes on a task list to give you more power, flexibility, and the chance to change your mind
Mhm.
because we know that our day is changing constantly and priorities are shifting all the time. So
Yeah.
you've got to have that flexibility and you're going to have that on a really good task list where you get to see everything and you can move stuff around really
Mhm.
fast. Now, some of the
Mhm.
systems don't let you move things fast. They make you click into the thing and look at the calendar and pick a date and then you hit save. And oh my God. That's why I love Microsoft, because
Mhm.
you can literally click and drag something. Boom, you're done.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, people may hate Microsoft, but let me tell you something. It's pretty powerful.
It has some efficiency things in it,
It sure
right?
does. And I know they're trying to change it. They've already got that little, toggle at the top that says try our new Outlook. And I'm telling my clients, don't touch that button. Don't touch it. Because it stripped everything out. Literally. Like it went with they're trying to be like Todoist or
Mm.
Google or anybody else. And actually they're not even as good as Todoist or Asana or Trello or any of them. It's even worse because what they did was turn it into a digital legal pad.
Oh, I
Terrible. It's bad. It's making me cry. Like I got the box of Kleenex right here. I'm like, someday when they rip this out of my hands, which is going to be a cold, dark day when they do that.
yeah.
And for my clients too, because sometimes like a couple of them have flipped the switch, and then I get the call, or the next time we talk, they're like, "How do I get rid of this thing?" Like I don't know what I hit, and they didn't know that it was going to be so
Mm.
wildly different. Like I had to
Yeah.
get my task list back, you know.
Yeah.
So they were
Mm.
crying too.
And no, I mean, it brings up a good point because I know there's been a time where I did keep a task list to-dos, on a separate sheet. And maybe it's not your system, but it was in mine. It was like all of these little things, what I called little things. And my calendar was just for those appointments and those time things that needed to happen. And then when I had a gap, I was like, "Oh," and then I looked at my task list and
Mhm,
go, "Okay, I've got 10 minutes. Like,
mhm.
what can I get done in 10 minutes?" And that seemed to be really productive to me. Is that kind of how your system works?
Yes. So take your idea of the to-do list,
Uh-huh.
which is our task list. And it's not just the little things. Remember, even your most important stuff
Mhm.
gets a first action step or a next action step to keep that ball moving forward.
Yes.
So picture that they're going on there too, right? Everything is
Mhm.
small and achievable. Okay. Then on the calendar, we do protect time, but they're really open office time kind of time blocks
Yep.
into which you do two things. You put two things: task management and email management. So we are never specific with those time blocks because you have to have that power to choose. Oh, today
Mhm.
I'm going to get my inbox back to zero, or today, which is every day, by the way, in our system. But it's like, well, I have to do that first and then I'll go work on some tasks. Or other
Mhm.
days they might say, well, I've got this hot task on my task list. Let me do that first.
Mhm.
And then I'll go back to email. And they have the choice to toggle back and forth all throughout the day, actually. But when they have that protected time blocks
Mhm.
in different spots in the day where I show them where they need to be, then they have that time to work the task list and work on email. So it doesn't have to be scheduled on the calendar. I mean, the task itself.
Right, right.
Like you're picking, like you are from
Mhm.
your
Yep.
list, you're picking and choosing, but your list might also be like a long list. Ours is grouped by action date. So remember the
Okay.
limit, so you're not going after this, you're going after this.
That's interesting. Yes. So tell me a little bit more about those action dates. Like,
Mhm.
are those like the due dates, like DUE dates,
Nope.
or nope?
DO.
Okay.
It's the date you're going to do that task, to
Okay.
send that email or make that call or
Okay.
create that agenda or whatever it is that you're going to do. So in our system, we're calling it DO.
Mhm.
And we're using the due date field DUE because they sound the same and it's in
Yep.
the system. I'm like, well, we're just going to rename it. Where we can, we do. Where we can't, we don't. But my clients already know that's my action date.
Yep.
Now, if there is a deadline, if there is something you have to keep in mind, like let's say you
Mhm.
want to get started with something right now, but it's not due until November 1st, we
Mhm.
keep that deadline in mind. That goes in the task. So you always have it in your vision.
Okay.
You never forget it, but you can't wait until then to start. You have to
Right.
start now. Yeah.
Yep.
So those action dates are target action dates. I never want anybody to feel trapped by them because I have a
Mhm.
feeling there's some listeners out there going, "Oh my God, that's so specific. Oh my God, she's locking me in." We're not. No.
I
With
need that
what
flexibility.
exactly. And you will more than you know. And I'm so glad we're talking about this because I don't want people to feel trapped by this at
Mhm.
all. It actually gives you a lot more flexibility than you think. So, what you're doing is you're taking the information you know today. Like, this is
Mhm.
what I know today about these tasks and follow ups. This is my plan because you have to start somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when you start there, but then your day changes, well, when you're in the right system or the right tool, you can change your mind very quickly. And let me be clear, I'm not telling you that you're becoming a procrastinator. You are reprioritizing.
Mm.
You are
Yeah.
making smart decisions because you have all the facts. You're like, this hot thing just came up and I was
Mhm.
going to do this today. Now I have to make a new choice because I can
Mhm.
see that if I go after this hot thing that really does need my attention, this one task that I was going to do today, I'm going to have to put that a few days later. It doesn't
Mhm.
automatically go on tomorrow. No.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you do have to be thoughtful about, well, this is going to have to wait till Thursday. That's my next best day to do this thing
Yeah.
because I have to go. And so you're making a conscious decision with all
Right.
the facts at hand. And it allows you not only to go after the right priorities or the daily priorities at the right time, but it gives you peace of mind that the other
Mhm.
thing didn't like
Just go.
get drop off the list, right? Drop out of your awareness.
Right.
So all of it is so flexible. Like it's a really strong plan to start with,
Mhm.
but it is so flexible because it has to keep up with you. And you
Yeah.
have to be able to turn on a dime, but without missing, losing, or forgetting anything.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, that sounds like an amazing system to get started with. And I know we have bits and pieces of it, but I think, like you said, but at the beginning, it's like it's a whole system.
Mhm.
It's a whole
There's a
method
lot
and
to
approach.
learn. Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's very easy. I'm training a team now, a corporate team right now at the
Mhm.
moment, and I asked them yesterday on a scale of 1 to 10, how are you liking it? And each one of them said, "I like it. It's easy. It's
Good.
easy." And
Yeah.
one of them even said, "Listen, if I start using something and I find it's too hard, I just stop." I'm like, "Well, you and
Mhm.
everybody else.
Well,
Me
yeah.
too."
Yeah. 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 If it takes too much brain power to figure out and it takes, and you're fumbling through it, our chances of sticking with it aren't very good.
Slim to none. Yeah, slim to none.
Yeah.
A lot of people stop. They stop because it took too long. It was hard. It was
Right.
complex. Too many
Right.
choices, or not having a guide or a coach to
Yeah.
ask. Like, I've got a gazillion questions. There's nowhere to turn
Yeah.
because all they're going to do at that particular company is tell you how to use their system,
Mhm.
like their technology,
Right.
but not the method that you really do need to know because
Right.
that's not what people are getting. They're
Yeah.
not getting
Because
the methodology.
like we said before, it was like you've got lots and lots of tools out there. There's lots of apps, there's lots of things. But if you don't have the method behind it, if you don't understand how to integrate all of it, it's not going to work.
It's about how to think about getting things done. It's about how to execute. And it's a whole different
Mhm.
approach that people haven't been hearing. And this is
Yeah.
why I love what I do so much
Right.
because I really break it down. So I'll tell your listeners, here's something juicy that you're really going to want to remember. I don't care what tool you're using and how bright and shiny it is with all the features. The only two things you need to know are what am I going to do and when am I going to do it? That is it for the
Mhm.
beginning. That's the
Yeah.
beginner step. Okay, there's more.
Yeah.
There's a lot more, but I'm saying for now, that's it. Because when you pick that action date, that is your first level of priority. That
Mhm.
tells you, yes, I have to do that today or tomorrow, but these other things are going to have to wait until next week. That's your
Yeah.
first level of priority. We do have another level where you can prioritize within a day and all that stuff because you don't
Yeah.
want the most important thing to be at the bottom of the list. It's
Right.
true. But just out of the gate, just build your list. Separate your reference stuff from your active stuff and start getting all of your tasks in one central digital and complete. By the way, complete is key. So if you keep leaving stuff out and you have
Mhm.
other places where you're looking for tasks, you're just crippling the system. You're
Yeah.
crippling your power to prioritize and actually get things done. So
Yeah.
load it up and then you don't have to look everywhere else. You'll have mission control. That's what I call
Yeah. And
it.
that's what we really want in life is control.
Mhm. Certainty.
Over because this life is so uncertain and it's so unpredictable. We just want control in our day and our lives.
Yes.
And this is really going to help increase that control, increase our productivity, our efficiency, reduce our stress and feeling like we're crazy because we're forgetting stuff.
Hmm.
If we get it all in there,
Hmm.
we can make
Yes.
those choices.
Amen.
Awesome. How can listeners find out more about you, your programs, what you do?
Yeah, go to productiveday.com. Really straightforward. Or they can email me if they have a question for me. It's
Okay.
Leslie at productiveday.com.
Okay.
LESLIE. We have 3 free gifts on the website right now.
Okay.
And the first one that I would encourage everyone to take advantage of is the quiz. It's called What's Your Number One Productivity Blind Spot? And it's a really
Ooh.
fun, short diagnostic quiz that gives you 4 different ways that you might go. You find out if you're a giver, a marker, a jumper, or a detective. So
Ooh.
it's kind of fun because you get your
Yeah.
own unique results report that's just about your particular blind spot. Then a few
Mhm.
days later, you get another report from me, a deeper dive into your particular blind spot, what's really going on in your workday with that
Mhm.
one, and how to fix it. So I
Yeah.
encourage everybody to take the quiz. It's available on our homepage. The other thing is what I call the Productive Day Smart Steps. Now, this is a 52-week audio series with just short tips and strategies straight from Taskology. They're only 2 to 4 minutes apiece. You can
Mhm.
get one in your inbox every week, and that'll get you going, thinking differently about how you're managing your day and your work. So I encourage everybody to take advantage of that too. And then the third one is a special report, sort of a free guide called The 7 Surprising Secrets to Saving Time. So time and productivity are hiding in your workday in several different processes. And
Mhm.
these 7 secrets will get you started in understanding, like, where is my time really going? Because it's not where you think.
Yeah, we can probably think we're knowing where it's going, but then it's probably one of our blind spots.
Might be, yeah.
Awesome. Well, this has been a great conversation. I know we could go on for hours because this
Mhm,
is both of our favorite, kind of topics. But listeners, please go check out Productive Day.
mhm,
Okay,
productive day.
productiveday.com. Yeah, I'll put it in the show notes.
Mhm.
We'll do that. But I was like, can you leave the listeners with just like as we wrap up, just one, more gem or a quote or something that besides just go to our website and get those three free gifts.
Sure, sure. Well, let's go back to email.
Okay.
Email's burying everybody. I would
Yep.
say the one thing that you can do is understand that email is never best managed while it's still sitting in the inbox.
Mhm.
So I want everybody to get, and I know we have two camps out there, inbox everything, I'm going to search, or inbox zero. And there are people who are in between, I realize. But I'm going to encourage everyone, go to the inbox and get all those older years out of there because they're
Yeah.
not doing anything except holding up your search, first of all. But I do want you to all get to zero, and not just to see the pretty white space. It's so you know you've seen everything, you've made a decision on everything, and you've
Mhm.
moved it all to better locations of reference or action, or it's gone, archived or deleted. It really, you can't best manage things while they're still sitting there.
Yeah.
So get those old years out of there. Just move them out into a folder. Like, not telling you to delete them, but just
Mhm.
they're not the hot stuff anymore. They really aren't. So make sure that you're only really paying attention to like the last 3 months because that's where all the good stuff is.
Mhm.
And then from there, you want to get your tasks out of there and onto your new task list when you set it up, and then get the other stuff, which is reference, get it out of there. I mean, there's other things in between, right? There's
Right.
reading, things, events,
Yeah.
contact information, attachments, and all that. But, basically it's reference and action. And if you
Mhm.
can just get started on those steps, you're going to start taking control of your email.
Yeah. Yeah, it is reference stuff and things to do.
That's it. I mean, it's both of those, or archive or delete.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just want everybody to understand that you'll have more control and certainty there too when you get a grip on email by starting with those steps.
Yeah. And I think I think it kind of would feel really good not to have like 1,000 unopened emails. Like,
Mhm. Yeah. Yes,
I
my
don't like
clients
those
love it.
numbers popping
Yeah.
up.
Yeah, they get addicted to the white space and they know they're in control because the only thing left to look at is the task list.
Yeah.
Not that more isn't coming in because you know it is.
Oh, well, yeah. 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 We'll save that time and kind of go through that real quick and then
Right.
be like, yay.
Yay.
Do that.
Exactly. Exactly.
Well, thank you so much. You had so many good tips for us to be
Mhm.
more productive and efficient and getting everything on a task list so we're organized and in control.
Yes, you are so
Thank,
welcome, Peggy. This was
thank you
fun.
so much.
Thank you.